So good afternoon. Okay, so could you please go back to the previous slide, please? Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Celestial, and I'm with Jane and I for this workshop. So we are going to talk about corporate smokescreen. Okay, so did you know that 11/11 or November 11 is Pocky Day in Japan, but in other countries, especially in the Philippines, it's a big day sale. So many people would like buy a lot of stuff because it's on sale. So I bet many of you, or maybe some of you, bought a lot last Thursday. So while big day sale bring about profit to companies and joy to us consumers, uh, have you ever thought about the real price that is paid? And I think that it's time that you learn more about how different companies place themselves in the public eye than what they actually do for profit. It's time for you to be aware of how companies are greenwashing us and evaluate your role as a consumer. Okay, so CSR. What is CSR? CSR means corporate social responsibility. And in today's time, CSR seems to be a trend, especially in the corporate world. Corporate social responsibility is a management concept whereby companies integrate social and environmental concerns in their business operations. So, in other words, it refers to the efforts made by the company to improve society and contribute towards sustainable development. So, CSR rather describes the initiatives run by the business to evaluate and take responsibility for their impact on a number of issues ranging from human rights to the environment. So a company's CSR should ensure that its economic growth is beneficial to all stakeholders. Stakeholders are their employees, consumers, and local population or community, while minimizing how it affects the planet. So CSR is a balance of the three: economic progress, social justice, and environmental protection. So the purpose of corporate social responsibility is not solely for profit, but to give back to the community, take part in philanthropic causes, and provide positive social value. So, however, corporate giants seem to neglect the true essence of CSR. Businesses are increasingly turning to CSR to make a difference, but build a positive um, brand around their company. So they do charities, they do donation drives, they do tree planting, and include it in their CSR reports. Which, however, uh, CSR is not about that. CSR is about the way in which companies make profit in an ethical way. So it's not about spending money it's not about spending money to donate, create charities, but it's about ethically gaining profits. So it's about the way in which companies make profit in an ethical way and not how they spend it to look ethical. So this is where corporate smokescreen enters. So how corporations project themselves is just a smokescreen to hide the truth behind their operational activities. Next, please. So now so there's more to it than meets the eye. So as you can see in the poster, people don't see us consumers don't see the reality behind the businesses through operational activities. And now let's tackle about CSR and how companies use it as a smokescreen to hide their environmental and social issues. Okay, so before we proceed to discussing these companies, which do you think, or which company or brand do you think is ethical? And you can type your answer on the chat box. Mm-hmm. So, so there is like B, C, B, C. How about the others? B. Okay, so we're going to find out the real answer after as we go on with this workshop. So now let's talk about fashion industry. So fashion describes fast fashion rather describes low priced but stylish clothing that moves quickly from design to retail stores and to meet trends, right? That's why it's called fast fashion, because they change constantly. And Zara and H&M rather are the two giants in fast fashion. So others include Uniqlo. Okay, so what they do is they sell in affordable prices in affordable prices and instant gratification for consumers. So for more profit for companies, and the democratization of stylish clothing are among fast fashion's benefits. So what fashion companies claim that they do in their CSR? So fashion companies claim that they operate in an ethical manner through promoting their CSR, in which they sponsor, organize, and do philanthropic activities such as doing charity works, donation drives, tree plantings, sponsoring events, and as what they claim as they care about society, people, and planet. But is it really true? Now let's watch Uniqlo sustainability statement. Oh, they couldn't hear the sound.
We can't hear anything.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's okay. Actually, it's just a background music, so I think it's not really important to hear the background music. What yeah, in the video. It's only background music. So but could you fix it for the next videos?
I think the author for the one who's projecting this should try to exit the share screen and then re-share screen again and make sure that the small boxes are checked, like the video optimization and also the music, because I think it wasn't checked earlier.
Thank you, Patrick.
We still couldn't hear a sound.
No?
No, unfortunately. Can you try to do it one more time? Unfortunately, we can't.
So, how can I?
Have you checked the small boxes when you try to share screen? There are sort of small boxes down the share screen tab, right? If you try to look at there, you'll see that there are
Oh,
two boxes.
okay.
Yeah, try to exit the share screen first. And then when you click the share screen, you'll
Mm-hmm.
see before you click share, you'll see on the left corner, you'll see two boxes there saying share sound and
Ah,
also share
okay.
optimize. Yeah.
Can I try again?
Yeah. There is
Yeah.
music
Thank
now.
you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, so as what you've seen in the video, Uniqlo claims that this is their sustainability statement. It's inclusive for people, and they recycle, of course, and also okay, but we might think that this is a good initiative, but on the downside, fast fashion is also associated with the real problems we really are facing. So next, please. Okay, so what fashion companies actually do. So the downside of fast fashion is also fast fashion is associated with pollution, waste, and promulgation of disposable mentality, low wages, and unsafe workplace. So fast fashion brands use open loop production cycles that pollute water and land, according to New York Times. And 68% of fast fashion brands don't maintain gender equality at production facilities. Worker rights of fast fashion employees are strongly violated. Now let's find out why. So here are some of the issues that some of like the big corporations or big companies, big brands, for example, Uniqlo. So Uniqlo has been under the fire after the scandal in 2015, where two Indonesian factories closed down overnight without paying legally required severance payments, and as well as several months of wages to 2,000 workers, 80% of whom are women. So like these are the manufacturers of Uniqlo's clothes. And also according to Clean Clothes Campaign, Uniqlo have a total of $55.5 million. So Uniqlo owed these workers $5.5 million, which they still didn't pay. And the annual revenue of Uniqlo as of 2020 was 31.9 billion. And Yanai's, or the CEO or the owner, Yanai's personal fortune is estimated at 31.9 billion. So that's only his personal fortune, yet they didn't pay the 5.5 million for these workers. And next is, as you can see, there's like two Chinese Uniqlo factories in 2016 discover of human rights abuses from excessive and unpaid overtime to chemically hazardous workplace environments. Oh, wait. Okay, here. So fast fashion industries are the topmost contributor of water pollution. So 20% of industrial water pollution comes from textile treatment and dyeing. 1.5 trillion liters of water are used by fashion industries each year. 5.2% of the waste in our landfills are textiles. And 23% of all chemicals produced worldwide are used for textile industry. And there are 70 million trees cut down each year to make our clothes. And 750 million people in the world do not have access to drinking water. So which is, there's also an issue there where 85% of the daily needs in water of the entire population of India would be covered by the water used to grow cotton in the country. And cotton is the main material used to produce clothes. 100 million people in India do not have access to drinking water. And so the 85% water used to grow cotton can possibly cover the 100 million people who do not have access to drinking water, right? So now let's move on to another. So the other one, the food industry.
All right, thank you, Celestial. So I'll be tackling food industry, and my chosen company is none other than Nestle. So Nestle is the largest food and beverage company in the world. Next slide, Okay, so just a little bit background of the company. So it was founded in 1867 and has more than 2,000 brands ranging from global icons to local favorites. And it's present, it's in operations in 186 countries worldwide. So can you name some of the Nestle products that you buy? You can chat it if you want.
Nido, Kit Kat, Milo, and Smarties.
Yes, actually I have Kit Kat here. I love the dark chocolate. Okay, thank you, whoever answered it. Okay, so next slide, please. Oh, okay, it was Lian. Thank you, Lian, for answering. Okay, so I will name a few of Nestle CSR goals, and they have 4 SDG goals, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, in line with their 36 commitments, namely good health and well-being, clean water and sanitation. Next slide, please. Sorry. Goal 8, decent work and economic growth and peace, justice and strong institutions. So these these SDG goals are in line with their CSR goals, which is to have good life from the start, for water to be essential to life and to their business. Also, Nestle wanted to empower the youth as well. And lastly, they want to collaborate with the UN in terms of providing sustainable and fair society and practices. Next slide, please. Okay, so they have 36 commitments, that's what I said, and I don't want to name all of them, but for this, but I'll give some, which are to promote healthy food environments, improve farm economics among the farmers who supply them, implement responsible sourcing on their supply chain and promote animal welfare, improve workers' livelihood and protect children in the agricultural supply chain, advocate for healthy workplaces and healthier employees, and improve the environmental performance of their packaging. So I highlighted these 6 because we're talking about social and environmental issues. And these 6 commitments out of the 36 that they have are amongst that we would want to tackle, because we want to unravel the dark truth behind their CSR, and we want to evaluate them as greenwashing or SDG washing. Please, next slide, please. Okay, so anyone here who doesn't know what this thing is? I bet every one of you knows, right?
No, actually, I don't know.
Okay, yes, it's a cacao pod, correct. So
I
but
did not know that.
the thing is, this may be a surprising fact, but consumers are so out of hand with how food is made in general, but some people don't even know what a cacao pod looks like. That's why I asked, and good thing all of you know. And that's the consumer side, but in the production side, cacao farmers don't even know what the end product of this fruit is, lest they've never even eaten chocolate or tasted chocolate in their lives. Next slide, please. Okay, so cocoa production in West Africa. Nearly 2/3 or 45% of the world's cocoa production is or comes from West Africa, and that's particularly in countries, in Ghana and in the Ivory Coast. However, Ivory Coast has the biggest cocoa production, and these 2 countries are the powerhouses of cocoa production. Cocoa trees thrive in tropical climate, but West Africa really is the powerhouse of cocoa production. So I would want to tackle on the social issue behind cocoa production, which is child labor. This will be presented in a video. Next slide, please. Okay, please.
Cocoa is mostly grown in West Africa by smallholders on family farms. They sell their cocoa down the supply chain, where it goes through several steps and changes before it becomes the chocolate that you enjoy. Children often help out on these small farms alongside their families. Not all work done by children is harmful, but sometimes the tasks they do are hazardous, and the work can get in the way of their schooling. This is classed as child labor and is not allowed. About 1.6 million children engage in child labor on cocoa and Ghana. The most common hazardous tasks include carrying heavy loads, using sharp tools and pesticides, as well as land clearing. This is unfortunately part of a bigger problem of child labor around the world. Current estimates suggest 152 million children are in child labor, 70% of them working in agriculture. In cocoa, there are many reasons for this concerning situation. Often, farming families are too poor to hire workers to help. Sometimes, farmers don't have access to good schools for their children. And sometimes they don't know that child labor is harmful. Many people confuse child labor with forced labor, but they are not the same. Forced labor means working against one's will and under threat. Studies suggest that in Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire's cocoa sector, roughly 1% of children in child labor could be in or at risk of forced labor. So, what are we doing to help? Governments.
Okay. All right, so this video depicts that children in West Africa are subject to forced labor, and their work includes the use of sharp tools, working overtime, working at night, and exposure to agrochemical products, among other harmful activities. Also, there have been reports on child trafficking from other parts of Africa, in which children are being trafficked to Ghana and the Ivory Coast in order to work in cocoa farms. And so, in conclusion, the journey chocolate must make from bean to the bar is rife with exploitation, corruption, and violence. And nearly every player of this industry is trapped because of poverty in the web of complex and often cruel supply chain that keeps the profit far from those who need it most. So that's about child labor and modern slavery. Next slide, please. So for the sake of time, I'll just give you an overview of this. Single-use plastics and plastic pollution is one of Nestle's biggest problems. And all of us have a role to play in tackling plastic pollution. But the reality is we, the consumers, are already bearing the burden of this crisis, right? We're trying to promote eco-friendly choices like swapping plastic bottles for reusable glass and metal, ditching straws, disposable straws, not using plastics, using eco bags. But these are so much that we can do if companies don't step up and provide more sustainable choices. And to solve this problem, we need to change the entire system, and it's up to us, the consumers, to demand companies like Nestle to be part of the solution to this problem. That's all. You may proceed with Sumitomo Corporation, since we're running out of time.
Okay, thank you, Jane. So I'm going to focus on Sumitomo Corporation. Yeah, and Sumitomo Corporation is one of the trading company, which is often called Sogo Shosha in Japan, and operate business and intermediate position with business to business, which is often called B2B. And they operate 6 kinds of business and new business for next generation. So mostly we do not have direct relationship with them, but the company has a relationship with many kinds of companies and various market, so that we are indirectly related to Sumitomo Corporation. Besides, Sumitomo operates the business and have office globally, so you can see that they have a big impact on society. And these are environmental policy of CSR activity based on Paris Agreement. So they set a long-term goal, which is carbon neutral by 2050. And based on this goal, they also set medium-term goals, like don't work on new coal-fired power generation business and construction, or like withdraw from the coal-fired power generation business, and so on. And there are also policy for social issue, like respecting children's rights or indigenous people. And they aim to urge CSR whole of the supply chain, and also they mention the responsibility to see the local people here, local creation of local employment, and yeah, care about those who live there. But however, even though they declare that they don't work on new coal-fired power generation business and construction, they remain the possibility to support coal-fired power generation at Matabali, Bangladesh, as only exception. And this is very local video, so there's only a English subtitle, so please refer to it.
কোহেলিয়া যুগ যুগ ধরে জোয়ার ভাটায় আপন গতিতে প্রবাহিত হতো কক্সবাজার জেলার মহেশখালী উপজেলায় অবস্থিত এই নদীর স্রোত। লবণ চাষী, জেলে এবং মাঝিমল্লার গানে মেতে থাকত কোহেলিয়া। কোহেলিয়া নদীকে কেন্দ্র করে প্রাকৃতিক সৌন্দর্যমণ্ডিত মহেশখালী দেশি বিদেশি পর্যটকদের বিচরণে মুখর থাকত। বাংলাদেশ সরকারের উন্নয়ন পরিকল্পনার অংশ হিসেবে মাতারবাড়িতে কয়লাভিত্তিক বিদ্যুৎ কেন্দ্র সহ বিশেষ অর্থনৈতিক অঞ্চল নির্মাণের কাজ এগিয়ে চলেছে, যা স্থানীয় লোকজন তথা দেশবাসীর জন্য খুবই আশাব্যঞ্জক। কিন্তু বাস্তবতা আসলে কি? অপরিকল্পিত শিল্পায়নের বলি হয়ে থেমে গেছে কোহেলিয়া তীরের স্বাভাবিক জীবনযাপন। জীবিত কোহেলিয়া নদীটি আজ মৃতপ্রায়। উৎকণ্ঠায় দিন যাচ্ছে নদী তীরবর্তী মানুষের। জলাবদ্ধতা সহ নানা বিরূপ প্রতিক্রিয়া দেখা দিয়েছে মাতারবাড়ি ও মহেশখালী এলাকায়। পরিবেশ অধিদপ্তর 2016 সালের জানুয়ারি মাসে কোহেলিয়া নদীর উপর দিয়ে ভুক্তভোগী এলাকায় প্রায় 5,579 একরের বেশি জমি অধিগ্রহণ কাজ চলছে বলে জানা যায় এবং এ অধিগ্রহণকালে বহু বসতি বন্যার পানিতে ভেসে যায়। পয়ঃনিষ্কাশন ব্যবস্থা ভেঙে পড়ে, ফসলের ক্ষতি হয়। লবণ চাষী, জেলে এবং কাঁকড়া আহরণকারীরা ক্ষতির শিকার। স্থানীয় বাজারে কাঁচা পণ্যের দাম প্রায় 25 বেড়েছে। যোগাযোগ ব্যবস্থার অবনতি হয়েছে। স্থানীয়দের কর্মসংস্থানের পরিবর্তে বেকারত্ব ও দারিদ্রতা বৃদ্ধি পাচ্ছে। শিক্ষা ব্যবস্থা ও স্বাস্থ্য কাঠামো ভেঙে পড়েছে। দূষিত পানি, পরিবেশ এবং জনস্বাস্থ্যের জন্য হুমকি হয়ে দাঁড়িয়েছে এবং প্রায় 10,000 মানুষ পুষ্টিহীনতার ঝুঁকিতে রয়েছে।
আমরা এখানে থাকতে পারি না, বারিশে অনেক কষ্ট, বুক করতে করতে 2 বছর চলে গেছে। পানি ঢুকে আমাদের বাসায় এখনো আপনারা গিয়ে দেখেন, বাড়িতে এখনো পানি আছে। আমাদের এলাকার আমাদের জায়গা, এই জায়গাটা সবগুলো স্পিম প্রকল্পে নিয়ে গেছে। নিয়ে যাওয়ার পর আমরা কিছু করতে পারছি না, এখন আমরা বেকার। জাল বসাতাম নদীতে, এখন নদীগুলো বরফ হয়ে গেছে, এখন আমরা জাল বসাতে পারি না।
কোহেলিয়া নদী ভরা এবং এর কারণে সৃষ্ট বিভিন্ন বিরূপ পরিস্থিতি পরিলক্ষিত করে 2019 সালের মার্চ মাসে বাংলাদেশ পরিবেশ আন্দোলন বাপা স্থানীয়দের সাথে এক সচেতনতামূলক মতবিনিময় সভার আয়োজন করে। 2020 সালের মার্চ এবং সেপ্টেম্বর মাসে কোহেলিয়া মৎস্যজীবী সমবায় সমিতি নদী রক্ষার দাবিতে দুটি মানববন্ধন করে। 2021 সালের 16 এবং 17 জানুয়ারি বাংলাদেশ পরিবেশ আন্দোলন বাপা এবং জাতীয় নদী জোটের 18 সদস্যের একটি প্রতিনিধি দল 2 দিনের সফরে কোহেলিয়া নদী সরেজমিনে পরিদর্শন করেন এবং তাৎক্ষণিক প্রতিক্রিয়া দেন, যা 18 জানুয়ারি বিভিন্ন জাতীয় এবং স্থানীয় পত্রিকায় বিশেষভাবে ছাপা হয়। বাপা ও নদী জোটের পক্ষ থেকে 23 জানুয়ারি ঢাকা রিপোর্টার্স ইউনিটিতে একটি সংবাদ সম্মেলন হয়। পরিবেশ অধিদপ্তরের প্রতিনিধি দল সত্য উদ্ঘাটনে ঘটনাস্থল পরিদর্শন করে এবং সড়ক ও জনপথ বিভাগের প্রকল্প পরিচালক এবং সংশ্লিষ্ট কোম্পানিকে নদী ভরাটের সত্যতা পাওয়ার সমন দাবি করে। 25 জানুয়ারি কিলিং অফ কোহেলিয়া নামে জাতীয় দৈনিক ডেইলি স্টারে একটি অনুসন্ধানমূলক প্রতিবেদন প্রকাশ করা হয় এবং
And also you can understand, you can see this poster. And he said, like, I used to fish in the Kohelia River, but now I can cast my nets as the river has been filled due to the project construction. And also the woman said, my house was collapsed due to sand removal for construction of the Matabari coal fire project. And so you will understand through this video and poster, you will understand that this business not only harm environment, but also human rights and ecosystem or labor force and cause poverty. But some NGO make an action. So one of the environment NGO, Mighty Earth, report Sumitomo's carbon neutral failure, and they act against Matabari coal plant at Sumitomo in front of Sumitomo office in Washington, D.C. And also an Australia environmental NGO, Market Force, submit a shareholders proposal of strengthening policy for decarbonization. And the proposal was rejected, but 20% of the shareholders agreed to the proposal, and it was quite meaningful action. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so those who answered the trivia question a while ago, why do you think Sumitomo and Nestle are ethical companies? So, and also share with us what you think of it now that you've learned the truth. So yeah, feel free to share with us what you think.
Hi, for me, it was just the whole marketing, like the logo and the catchphrase. So I didn't know the company, so just by looking, I thought, this one seems more ethical. But I guess we can't really trust the companies, and we have to, check the facts for ourselves before anything.
Thank you very much.
Right. Okay. So, any other? Like, how do you guys feel? Like, how
Can I?
learning? Yeah, sure. Feel
Hi,
free.
I'm Simon. Hi, everybody. I think it's interesting to think about the role of like how capitalism works. Like capitalism is Shihon Shugi, and just how it works. Like we are very rich in our countries, and we live very comfortable lives because those people are poor, because they do the work for us. So they do the hard work of growing cacao. And if we paid them a good living wage, chocolate would be much, much more expensive in our countries. And so we can buy cheap chocolate because they live in poverty. Now, it's possible, I don't know the economics of it, it's possible that the company's profit could be fairly shared amongst those workers and chocolate would still cost the same. I'm not sure of the exact economics, but it's definitely true that we benefit massively from them living in poverty. And I think it's just really important to kind of think about that. Ultimately, in my opinion, my kind of kaishaku on all of this is that we in the rich West are going to have to come down in how rich we are. We live lives that are far too luxurious now. I don't think we need to live in poverty, but I think we will need to fly less. We will need to go shopping less. Food may be a larger part of our weekly budget. I do think we can live comfortable, happy, fulfilling lives like that, but we'll be taking a bus, not driving a car. We'll be riding bicycles. We won't be flying 2 or 3 times a year. Flying will probably be something we do rarely. So I think it's really just important to realize that, you know, it's not like they can all get as rich as us. Like in my opinion, we're going to have to come down in our levels of consumption and of luxury. As for the A, B, or C question, I didn't know, and I didn't know much about Sumitomo, so I just guessed B because I knew the other 2 were bad. But anyway, that was actually very interesting. I learned a lot about Sumitomo. Anyway, yeah, so that's just like kind of thinking about how capitalism really works to benefit us by exploiting poor people is really, really quite important. It's important to me anyway. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing your takeaway. Yes, capitalism is not the perfect system. We need to fix it. It's a broken system, and it's just so sad that cocoa farmers earn roughly $200 a year, while these chocolate companies earn billions. And it's also because of the government. For instance, in the Ivory Coast, they actually regulate the price of cocoa beans. In that way, they will still be able to produce more beans coming from the demands of those buyers. So it's really a vicious cycle, and the government, their government, is even playing a role in corrupting and exploiting these workers, right? And yes, I do agree with consuming less and try to get away from or stay away from luxury.
But I think that's going to have to be a whole economic system change. Like as an individual consumer, I can't do much.
I agree.
Yeah.
I do agree.
Actually, can I just really briefly, Gurianne, is that how I say your name?
It's Julie.
Julie. Julianne, thank you. Sorry. You said we have to be very careful about the companies, and that's totally true. We do, because they're lying to us constantly. But I do think we should be very angry about the fact that we have to go check them. Like, we shouldn't have to do that. It shouldn't be our job as consumers. Those companies should act ethically, as a matter of course. That was just a brief comment. Thank you.
I would just like to add what Simon said about that one. In connection to that one, don't you think that it's also a demand for the government to monitor these kinds of, like these kinds of regulations? Because I agree with what Simon said about, like as a consumer, it's not our primary responsibility. It shouldn't to every type of like company that we're trying to transact with, right? So the problem here is that even if we try to impose that one to the profiles of these companies, there's still no assurance to begin with that they will be working on these kinds of things, but rather they'll just create another layer of smokescreen, just like what the team here is trying to present. So in that case, we need to look onto a more higher level of like monitoring system, and that could be regulated by the government itself. And that leads me to the idea of like asking the government to do more, because I think all these kinds of things are just like domino effect of how a government in a particular state or a particular community is not as functional as we think they are. So that's just
Yeah, I completely agree, though. I think we should demand of our governments, not ask, demand.
Yes, as someone who lives in a country which our economy base is agriculture, so I can say for sure that the government actually profits a lot by exploiting people, and so that like we should demand, yes, but very difficult for the government to just they want money.
I think the only problem here though is that if we like people like us who are aware about these kinds of social issues try to demand on the government itself, there's also a tendency that the government itself will just try to isolate these kinds of things or demands, because one, there are we know for the fact that there are politicians who are really looking more onto the capitalist side rather than focusing on what needs to be done in order for the sake of the well-being of the people. So it just made me think that things are very, very like complicated nowadays. It's very hard that even if people who are working in the government itself are not really onto that, but rather having like a side agenda to begin with. And it's so sad that we couldn't gather everyone here, like in other like other concerned consumers as well, to just buckle up and then present this one to the government, because at the end of the day it's still the government's decision whether or not they make the move or not. And that's just very, very unfortunate for us here, because we just keep on demanding. We're just waiting for something that maybe it will happen in the future, or like another way for them to disappoint us again. But anyway, in totality, I would just like to thank everyone, especially the presenters, Jane, and also Celestial, for the very wonderful and productive um
Yeah.
presentation that you guys taught us.
Thank you so much, Patrick. And in addition to what you've said, it's not just the responsibility of the government, but also us as consumers to, yeah, it's hard for us to do research on our own, but there are organizations that does it, and all we have to do is follow them. So there is greenpeace.org. You can follow them for informations about it. And also what we can do as mere consumers is to let our voices be heard, not just by the government, but by the corporation itself. So I'm not saying we should boycott, what I'm saying is that we should let them hear us, that we know what you're doing, and by doing that, we can sign up on petitions. So there are petitions organized by NGOs, and so all we have to do is be aware, I think. So that's just an addition to what you've said, that yes, it is the responsibility of the government, but also us individuals, as consumers, we also have a fair share of responsibility. So yeah, and speaking of petition, if you have time, guys, we pasted on the chat a link for a petition. So if you have time, you can visit those links and sign the petition if you're interested. And please do follow greenpeace.org, because they are really like helpful, especially when you are when you want to know more about these kinds of issues. Jane?
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for attending today's workshop. One more thing here. Yuichi, he actually chatted his opinion, and your opinion is acknowledged, but we no longer have time. But thank you so much for attending our workshop, and just a main takeaway to use our consumer power, and let's demand corporations and not let them control us. Thank you so much, and you all have a great weekend.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys for attending. And please do join other workshops after this.
Oh, I forgot the screenshot. Okay, I'll stop recording.